This is Keep the Faith Ministry News. I'm Hal Mayer. Thousands of birds fall from the sky. Millions of fish wash up on the shore. Honeybee populations decimated. Bats overtaken by a deadly fungus. Piglets die in droves from a mysterious disease. Toxic algal blooms that kill. These and other stories of mass animal death seem to be happening quite frequently these days. Researchers from the University of San Diego, University of California, Berkeley, and Yale have collaborated to review the growing lists of mass die-offs in the scientific literature for the last 70 years. They have identified 2,407 global populations of mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, amphibians, and marine invertebrates that have had mass mortality events, as they call them. Their analysis was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. They said that not only are these events becoming more frequent, they are also increasing in magnitude, with the number of fatalities higher for birds, fish, and marine invertebrates. They also reported that 35 events completely or nearly wiped out an entire population. Over the last 70 years, there's been at least one more mass mortality event each year, going from one event per year to 70 each year. The cumulative death toll reaches into the billions. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. Romans 8:22.
Massive fish and bird kills in Arkansas. Up to 5,000 blackbirds just fell from the sky in the town of Beebe. This happened just before midnight on New Year's Eve. And then tonight, we're learning that some 100,000 fish have washed up on the shores of the Arkansas River, which is about 125 miles from where the birds fell. And joining us now by phone from Little Rock is Keith Stevens. He's the spokesman for the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. Keith, Jackie Jarris also here with us. What is going on here? These are two very unusual circumstances.
Pretty strange things going on here in Arkansas. Unusual events that we don't often see. We do have fish die-offs from time to time. Obviously, this is a pretty large one, so it's got our attention. The birds, that's really unusual. We've had birds that have fallen out of the sky before, but not in this number.
Yeah, we've heard of birds falling out of the sky, due to storms and thunderstorms and things like that. What do you think happened?
Well, we think that there's a possibility that maybe some New Year's Eve revelers in the area where the birds were roosting may have shot some fireworks off and stressed the birds to the point where they actually died.
We're talking now in the break. You think it might have literally been that they had heart attacks because they were it was such a fright for them.
It's possible. We're going to send the birds off to two testing facilities where they'll do necropsies on them, and we'll find out exactly what happened. But this, it's really pointing towards that right now. It obviously could be a weather event, but we're kind of leaning the other way.
In Whittier, Alaska, seabirds are dying. An estimated 8,000 common murres were found along the shore recently. One of North America's most abundant seabirds, the common murres are apparently starving to death.
What we want to do is just figure out, is this an isolated event or is this happening across Prince William Sound? We want to know where it's happening and the magnitude.
Die-offs have occurred in previous winters, but not in the numbers seen this season. Federal researchers won't even estimate the number of
deaths. Since early May, over 120,000 endangered saiga antelope have mysteriously died in Kazakhstan. Scientists are uncertain of the cause, but evidence points to a natural bacteria in the stomach of the animal that turned deadly. A cold winter and a wet spring may be a contributing factor, but nobody knows for sure. The saiga antelope population before the massive event numbered approximately 250,000 worldwide.
This time the location is Vietnam, and the victim is buffalo and more cattle. 200 dead cows in Wisconsin and 7,000 dead buffalo in Vietnam. What is happening? It's a very good question. What is happening? The dead buffalo and cows in Vietnam are dying from unusually cold temperatures. Other livestock dying along with the dead buffalo events are being reported out of Vietnam over the weekend. Officials in Vietnam are attributing the deaths to the freezing winter the country is experiencing. The dead buffalo and cows have been dying all over Vietnam, with the total at 7,000. Vietnam has seen such massive death. In one night, over 700 livestock were froze. According to the news, the only cause that's killing the dead buffalo and cows in Vietnam are the unusually cold temperatures.
Leanne McAdoo here with an InfoWars Nightly News Alert. Now, it is no secret that corporate politics is business as usual here in the United States, but nevertheless, it's still shocking to report that the EPA has once again sided with industry lobbyists over public health by approving the use of a highly toxic pesticide linked to large-scale honeybee deaths. Now, this approval comes just after the EU outright banned the use of the same pesticide. The EU vote comes after significant findings by the European Food Safety Agency that these pesticides pose an unacceptable risk to bees and their use should be restricted. Along with habitat loss and pathogens, a growing body of science points to neonicotinoid pesticides as a key factor in drastically declining...
Millions of bees dropped dead after GMO corn was planted a few weeks ago in Ontario, Canada. The local beekeeper, Dave Shewart, who produces honey in Elmwood, lost about 37 million bees, which are about 600 hives. Once the corn started to get planted, our bees died by the millions, Shewart said. While many beekeepers blame neonicotinoids, or neonics, for colony collapse of bees, and many countries in EU have banned neonicotinoid class of pesticides. The U.S. Department of Agriculture fails to ban insecticides known as neonicotinoids, manufactured by Bayer Crop Science Inc. Nathan Kerry, another local farmer, says that this spring he noticed that there were not enough bees on his farm, and he believes that there is a strong correlation between the disappearance of bees and insecticide use.
Dozens of dead fish are washing ashore on a popular Naples beach, and folks are not sure why. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Rotes.
And I'm Brittany Weiner. NBC2's Chris Gilmore is live on Vanderbilt Beach with people who've been dodging these fish all day. Chris.
I've spoken to a lot of the people on the beach today, and they tell me it's been a perfect day here on Vanderbilt Beach, except for one thing. At least 100 of these fish washing along shore every few hundred feet as you walk along the beach.
It's the first time so many have got beached. We've asked senior officials from the Gulf of Mannar, Marine Park, and the Forest Department to investigate.
Miles de calamares murieron en las costas de la isla chilena de Santa María. Los residentes de la isla dijeron que año con año llegan a algunos.
ये जो बीच है, पूरी बीच है, यहाँ पर मैं कभी भी नहीं देखा हूँ कि पूरी बीच में इतना संख्या से फसल।
State officials confirmed the first 2 cases of the West Nile virus in the state this year in Okfuskee and McIntosh counties. The mosquitoes that carry West Nile generally prefer hot, dry weather, but the recent heavy rains have created a large breeding area for all kinds of insects, including mosquitoes. And the emergence of the longest living insect is already providing deafening noise in some parts of the state.
It's a chorus from nature, only heard like this in Oklahoma every 17 years. The 17-year periodical cicadas are making their presence known after being underground for nearly 2 decades. The insects make their way up the trees after the soil reaches a temperature of 64 degrees. What you're hearing is the mating call of the male insects, who along with the females cover tree limbs in blankets. The noise made by the cicadas is among the loudest of all insect-produced sounds. For humans, the mating call is the only real bothersome thing the insects produce. The females will cut slits into the bark of a tree to deposit her eggs, which may cause damage to small limbs. Once the cicadas emerge, their cacophony will last about 2 weeks. That's how long it takes for all the eggs to hatch. The Noble Research Center on the campus of Oklahoma State University in Stillwater is where we found bug expert Tom Royer, an OSU entomologist.
After about 6 weeks or so, the eggs hatch and drop to the ground. The nymphs drop to the ground and go in, find their roots to feed on, and spend underground 17 years.
Royer says the emergence of cicadas, particularly the 17-year species, was delayed somewhat by the recent rain and cooler temperatures. But the wet weather has already sped up the hatching of mosquitoes and ticks. Royer says all Oklahomans should be wary of ticks, whose populations dwindled during the drought and are now growing in large numbers.
Of course, everybody knows about Rocky Mountain spotted fever and Lyme disease, but there's other diseases that some of the ticks in Oklahoma can transmit, and we have to really be careful of them.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say a resident of Payne County is only the 2nd person in the United States confirmed to have contracted the rare bourbon virus from a tick. In Kansas, where the first case was confirmed, the patient died. The Oklahoma resident recovered. Symptoms include fever, severe muscle and joint pain, fatigue, disorientation, diarrhea, and a rash. The Oklahoma State Department of Health says since the disease is new, it's not yet known how significant the illness may be in the state. The effect of West Nile virus carried by mosquitoes has been significant in Oklahoma in recent years. In 2012, there were 161 non-fatal cases and 15 deaths caused by the virus. In 2013, the number dropped from 76 cases and 8 deaths. And last year, during the drought, there were only 17 cases and no deaths. This year's flooding and wet weather may mean more cases of West Nile. Bernard Dindy heads up mosquito control for the Tulsa Health Department. 50 mosquito traps already show the mosquito population is exploding.
We also use those traps to test those mosquitoes for the West Nile virus, and we've also detected in 3 of our trap sites that virus, and that usually doesn't show up till July.
Dindy says because of all the rain, the department could not begin spraying to kill mosquitoes until this week. Now the spray trucks are out in force in the evenings to try and reduce the mosquito population and the risk of West Nile virus. Dindy urges everyone to use DEET insect repellent when outside and do their part to get rid of breeding areas for the insects.
Cleaning their gutters, emptying kiddie pools, make sure that their pool is properly drained, and if they have it covered, make sure the cover is not holding any standing or stagnant water. Empty flower pots, their pet water daily, almost every day.
Summer doesn't officially begin until July 21st, but from the sound of things, it's going to be a buggy season.
The town of Haskell, Texas, at a drive-in.
A beetle invasion of biblical proportions has hit beaches in Argentina, with millions of the black critters descending on the sands, leaving experts baffled. Locals reacted with horror after seeing the swarm of the bugs crawling on the beaches in the resorts of Mar de Ajó, 31 miles away from the capital Buenos Aires, and San Bernardo. In scenes straight out of a horror film, images posted onto social media show the beaches turn black by the plague of beetles as they cover miles of coastline. Although no one is exactly sure what is behind the phenomenon, social media has gone into meltdown with theories. Some believe it is a portent of the end of the world, with commentators claiming the influx of beetles is an ominous warning of impending doom and the end of times is near, they can sense it. Others suggested that an earthquake had hit the area before the beetle invasion appeared. Or it's some similar type of beetle. They only live for a few days at that stage after crawling out of the ground. So a lot of beetles flew, got swept out to sea by the winds, and then came back to the beach, most of them dead or dying. Most likely scenario I can come up with. Scientists say the beetles live for about 2 years underground and come out to mate. They only live for 4 more days during this cycle. The hatching takes place every year, and although in the past it usually takes place in January, for the last couple of years it has been happening later. Now local news says locals are trying to sell the beetles online. According to one ad, a man is offering them for £46 per kilo or £21 per pound. According to some, secretions from the insect can strengthen the body's defenses against cancer, AIDS, asthma and diabetes, among other illnesses.
The town centre in Halls Creek is full of unwelcome visitors. Summer rains have brought thousands of yellow-winged locusts to the area's parks, gardens and properties in numbers far larger than usual. Locals say this year is particularly bad. The pests are a problem for nearby pastoral stations that grow their own feed for cattle.
Oh, they certainly chew it down, no question about that. But that can be overcome by spraying, not only Go-Go but elsewhere. They certainly have impact.
But according to the Department of Agriculture, spraying entire pastures is not always the best solution because the insects mostly attack the crop in patches. Researchers are working on a more environmentally friendly way than pesticides to manage the locusts before they multiply into such large numbers. But they say a comprehensive monitoring plan in the Kimberley is what's needed. Murdoch University is developing a product to lure the locust away from crops by using its own odour, after which the swarm can be trapped and destroyed.
It's more environmental friendly than their product, and also we can use it for diagnostic.
And it's not just crops, there's also advice for drivers. Keep a bottle of water ready to wash splattered windscreens. Laura Gartrey, ABC News.
For 3/4 of an hour, a giant swarm of locusts about 15 kilometres long crosses Madagascar's National Route 7. This road is normally popular with tourists who come for the breathtaking views. But today they're observing a natural disaster, a plague of locusts which has already destroyed half of the island's crops.
They can create a lot of damage. They eat the pastures and then also the rice and the corn, which is about to be harvested.
According to experts, there are currently 100 swarms across Madagascar, made up of about 500 billion locusts. And they get through around 100,000 tons of vegetation every single day.
There's already not much rice. Not many people have more than 10 hectares of crops. So after the locusts, there's nothing left for our women and children to eat. The cattle have nothing left to eat either. So we're left with nothing once the locusts have been here.
Madagascar was hit by Cyclone Haruna in February, and the floods created a perfect breeding ground for locusts. Authorities tried to kill them, but the swarms were simply too big.
The measures taken weren't enough, and so we had a locust invasion. In one day we counted 5 swarms over a distance of 20 kilometers. It's extremely serious. All of the Malagasy population is affected.
Madagascar is still waiting for over $40 million in aid to finance an emergency plan over 3 years. But donors haven't yet given the green light.
The big problem here is that we don't have money, so we can't buy pesticides and we can't buy enough fuel all at once. The field officers, the managers can't do their work, and while we're not working, the farmers suffer and the locusts multiply.
The locusts have already destroyed 50% of the country's rice fields, the staple food for Malagasy people. Authorities are calling for the aid to be released quickly before half of its population goes hungry.
Guys, Kart Racer, here's some strange stuff. Thousands of mayflies pile 6 inches deep and block traffic in Havana, Illinois. Thousands of mayflies had taken over a bridge in Havana, central Illinois on June 27, 2016. At one point, the mound of insects piled 6 inches high. Them are monster-looking mayflies. We had a problem with them down at the Lake of the Ozarks for a year, but I mean, it was nothing like that. The Havana Police Department warned drivers of a massive mayfly swarm on its Facebook page Monday morning, posting 2 photos that showed the bridge over Illinois River and a local squad car blanketed by bugs. They're saying, please use caution when driving across the bridge today. Last night there was an invasion of mayflies that caused the bridge to be very dangerous. At one point, they had piled 6 inches high and when ran over become very slick. There were already motorcycle accidents due to this and cars stuck in the center of the bridge. All right, so let's think about this. We got mayflies so deep that it's causing motorcycle wrecks, car wrecks. It's like driving in the snow. If this isn't biblical, I don't know what is. These are signs of the times right here. Invasion of the mayflies wreak havoc. Anyway, this goes under the what the heck files here. Anyway, I'm Kart Racer. God bless.
An invasion of giant flies. It's something out of a horror movie. A cop car completely covered with the nasty insects. This is how it looked from the police dash cam. They're called mayflies. These guys aren't your regular annoying houseflies. They grow to 1 inch in length. And get this, they'll be alive for just 24 hours. They literally come alive to breed.